Welcome to Bunnyfish Crafts. I'm your host Heather, known as Bunnyfish on Ravelry, Instagram, and YouTube. Today is Monday, the 6th of June, 2016. This is episode 182, Staycation Crafting. Grab some sticks and string and come sit with me. How was your week? If you were at the ZK, I'm sure it was super fabulous. And I'm still a little jealous that I didn't get to go, but my staycation was pretty good. We went to the park a lot. We went to the library and we went to Chuck E. Cheese, which my kids have never been to before. Overall, pretty good week. Not a lot of sleep happening. I did get to go backyard camping several nights, and we had a huge bonfire one night. Yeah, it was pretty good, even though it wasn't what I had planned. But I did do a ton of crafting. Yeah, my desk is really, really full right now. And look, this is my whips list. And they're short noted. There's a lot of them are just like the name of it with no details listed. Yeah. Anyway, let's draw for a prize winner for the Small Things Craft Along, which you guys are still kicking butt at, and I love it so much. Let's see. Let's find a name. Here is the jar, and here are several numbers. Which one is going to stay? This one. The winner is Phoenix Fire Tracy, post 112 for a hexaflat. So Tracy, look at the prize thread and let me know what you would like to have. And I will get that to you quickly, or, well, probably not quickly, let's be honest. I'm kind of a fail at keeping up on Ravelry, but I will get that to you when I can, or get you in touch with whoever you need to be in touch with for that. Yes, that's the knit along. Keep going. It goes until the end of the month. Any finished object counts, big or small. Any yardage, anything. Parts of modular projects count, like hexapuffs, hexaflats, that sort of thing. Single socks count. All the rules are in the thread, but in case you're new and just needed a quick rundown, those things all count. Also, finished blankets and finished sweaters and all of that all counts. Everything counts. Finished objects. Since I had to take a drink, which I almost never do on the podcast, but I'm kind of dehydrated because I worked last night and I worked a long shift and I did not drink enough water because I'm out of practice of drinking constantly at work. I'm a little dehydrated today. So if I'm drinking on the podcast, I'll try to keep it to a minimum, but it's going to happen. Anyway, one finished object. This is my jar cozy. And I made it to the same pattern as the one that I made for Gabriel's teacher, but I used 2 sizes smaller of a hook because it was a little bit loose on her jar. It wasn't bad, but it was just a little bit loose, so I went down 2 sizes, which means that it is much shorter because hers went all the way to up here, and mine only goes to here, but that's all I really needed, all the space I really needed to cover for my hand, obviously. I made up this pattern, and it is a square, let's see, there's a little hole right there. A square base and then, or a circular base, and then you square it off on the last row. And then 3 rows of crocodile stitch, 2 rows of double crochet, and then a row of crab stitch to finish it off. The yarns I used were Peaches and Cream in an unknown colorway for this, and Peaches and Cream in the pageantry colorway for the crocodile stitch, and then this is Lily Sugar and Cream in a colorway that I don't remember. But I'll be sure to look it up sometime when I'm making the market bag, which I'll be starting maybe this month, maybe next month. Don't know yet. I'm pretty pleased with it. It covers what I need it to cover. It catches the moisture when I'm having a cold drink, and since this sippy cup thing can be used for hot or cold drinks. I'm sure it will keep my hands safe when I'm drinking hot tea out of it later. It's too warm outside for hot tea though, right now. I also finished the string band in time to enter in the knit along. Yay! So I think when I recorded that I did have this button band finished, right? Or was I really, or not button band, the cord casing. Did I have that finished? I can't remember. I think I had it finished. So I had this button band to do and this cord. So I did the cord. I crocheted it instead of making I-cord with knitting needles because no, I will not do that to myself. Crocheted I-cord looks just fine, and I could use both colors in it. And it's so much faster for me than knitted I-cord. So much faster. And the way that you do it is you just chain a whole bunch of things and then you slip stitch back all the way back, and that makes if it was in one color it would look very similar to knitted I-cord, but I did it in two, so it's a little different, which I enjoyed. Let's see, I did the button band. I used gray plastic buttons, and apparently I forgot to weave in a tail. I did right there. Oops. Take care of that in a minute. So I did the button band in the white. String band is meant to be a hat or cowl pattern, so put it on like this, and this isn't blocked or anything. It'll open up a little bit after washing, but I'm not actually worried about that. I'm just going to give it to my best friend as is, and she can worry about blocking it or whatever, washing it when she needs to. So it'll grow eventually, but you can leave the band open and wear it as a cowl, or you can mess up your hair first thing in the podcast, because why not? You can pull the string closed and put the string band on as a hat. Did I mention this is a Stephen West pattern? I can't remember. That button doesn't want to stay. That's unfortunate. Might have to sew that closed. And then use the strings like this and tie it into place and stuff. So that's what it looks like. It is knit using Premier Serenity sock for the purple is the Viola's colorway, and then this this white yarn is Wool Like by Loops and Threads in the ivory color. I'm just not styling this very well. Whatever. It's the string band is a hat. This is the third one I have made, and every time I'm making it, I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I do not love this pattern because it's forever garter stitch. It's knit flat and it's garter stitch forever, and there's no changing except your striping. I did add these eyelet rows. Those are not part of the pattern. So that at least that was something every once in a while. And then I get to the end and I'm like, oh yes, I remember why I make this hat. Because the buttons just give me so much joy to pick them out and sew them on and have them. I just love buttons. I used to craft with buttons when I was little. My grandma had a whole jar, so it's just a nostalgic, like, oh, buttons sort of thing. Does that make sense? I don't know. I just love them. Changes that I made, other than the eyelet rows, I used US size 1 for the ribbing instead of a 3, which the pattern calls for. And I used size 3 instead of a 4 for the stripes. And I think it turned out fine and slouchy. I mean, it's fairly slouchy and I haven't even blocked it yet. I also did not do the button band exactly how it's written in the pattern. It has you bind off and then cast on using a cable cast on Instead of using the cable cast on, I just did a double yarn over and then made the stitches into the yarn over on the next row. And it worked out fine. So yeah, there's the hat. Now on to works in progress, of which there are approximately a bajillion. I worked on the garland just a little. Let's see, where was I? Here I was. I added 2 beads. So my unofficial goal is a bead a week because that should help me get to the end, or very close to the end by Christmas time. But I did 2 this week because I did some hexapuffs on magic loop, and since the beads and the hexapuffs use the same size needle, and I didn't do 7, I only did 4 hexapuffs at a time. I had extra cable space. I was like, oh, why not make beads at the same time? So there's that. And the only reason I was doing them magic loop, I had been doing them on double points, which I like, and I hadn't been doing them on magic loop because I had the cord, the needle in the string band. But then I lost some of my double points, and I just haven't found them or replaced them yet. It's not a big deal. It's just a set of double points from Joann's or Walmart or something. Cheap, whatever. So I had to magic loop, and that was fine. But that's why those beads got made, because I magic looped. So I'm probably going to magic loop some hexapuffs this week and do 2 beads, because the beads row-wise, I finish one halfway through a hexapuff, so just start another one and then finish that through the other half of the hexapuff. And that's why there are 2. So we'll see if that trend continues into next week. I don't know. I don't make any promises. I also worked on the steampunkery socks, but not as much as my goal. I think that I am 2.5 days behind where I wanted to be at this point in time. It doesn't matter. They're going to be finished by the end of the month, but I do like to do the 2 rounds a day. And I'm actually in the middle of a needle across, so that's not the one that has the stitch marker. This one has the stitch marker. This is my progress. I'm on the final repeat. I'm working my way toward the toe. It's going fine. US size 1, 2.25 millimeter needles. The reason why these didn't get worked on is because I have to look at a chart, and I was doing a lot of wandering around. My other projects, everything else that I have is very easily portable, very simple patterns, can go to the park with it, but this I have to look at a chart. So this is why this got left behind and not worked on. And I did a lot of sitting outside and stuff, so yeah. I just didn't have the pattern, so I didn't work on it. But they'll be finished by the end of the month. I'm not too worried about it. The yarn is gorgeous. It is 716 knit, 716 sock in the Hell Hath No Fury Like a Woman Scored for Sega colorway. It is from last year's ZK. It's the Jenna colorway from last year. Beautiful. Love it. And I will be working on it this week. I'll be working on less of these works in progress this coming week. I just started it all last week because I had no work. So I had all of those extra hours in the day. I was like, oh, what? I'm just going to cast on everything and work on everything. But now that I'm back to working, I will be putting away several of the works in progress to not be worked on until other things are finished. I worked on the Franken socks some more. So this is where I was last week. And I've continued doing 5 rounds a day on one sock or the other. This is the color that I was talking about last week, about maybe making it 15 rounds. And this sock got less work. No, it got this one got the finished. So this is 15 rounds, and I've just attached the next color. And then this sock got about the same amount of work, and this is that colorway, the 15 rounds colorway, which I love. It's so pretty. I really, really like the way these socks are working up. They're not exact matches, but they're pretty, they're not so crazy different that I won't enjoy wearing them. which is what I worried about when I was looking at other people's Franken socks. Like, I don't care if my stripes match up in socks for me or anything like that, but I don't know. I can't bring myself to wear wildly different socks. Although, random story, I could totally make those for Gabriel, because one day this week, when we were all outside, the kids, Gabriel got socks from the sock basket, and they were unmatched, and they were both Christmas socks, but they were both my socks too. One was like a crew length sock, and one was a knee-high sock. And so my neighbor asked me about it, and I was like, I don't know. He just decided. I told him I would help him find the pair to one or the other, and he was like, no, I like this. One was, the knee-high was red and white sparkle stripes, commercial. Both socks were commercial. And the other one, the crew length one, was red and white stripes, but it had penguin stripes too, like little penguin going around. Love those socks. Yeah, that's what he wanted to wear, and he wanted to wear them the next day too, and I was like, no. They're dirty, they have stuff all over them, they probably smell because they're commercial socks, and commercial socks get smelly after one wash, or one wear, rather, not like bull socks, but yeah. So he would totally be fine with random mismatchy socks. So maybe next year Gabriel gets Franken socks for Christmas. Who knows? We'll see what I have for scrappy bits. You know, I do have that whole bag still from last year's ZK that Steve from Leading Men Fiber Arts and Dramatic Knits gave me, because he wasn't going to use it. And I'm sure he has boy appropriate colors, so maybe I'll do Franken socks out of that for Gabriel for Christmas 2017. I don't know. We'll see. So those are my Franken socks. I also worked on Cecilia's Christmas socks, and this is where I was last week. I made pretty decent progress. I am in the last big chunk of ribbing. This is a 40 round section of ribbing, and then I do 10 rounds of the final cuff ribbing and then bind off. So less than 50 rounds to go. I don't know how many less, but less than 50 rounds to go on these socks. So I'm kind of, I don't know what the right word is. I wanted to have these done this week, but then I cast on a billion other things. So they should be finished by this coming week. That shouldn't be a problem at all. So yeah, here they are. The yarn is Souls and More. I don't remember what the colorway is. It's just like pink, purple, gray stripe or something like that. Or something. I mean, it's one of those colorways, I think. But it should be in the show notes. And all socks are worked on US size 1, 2.25 millimeter needles. So that is everything that I had started last week. So on to the new things. The first one is it is craft adjacent, I'll say. I mean, it is crafty. It's a paper craft though, and I don't do a lot of paper crafting anymore. What it is everybody's been doing knitting journals, and I have really wanted to do a knitting journal, but I just haven't taken the time to do it. And then I was like, you know what? I have a bunch of extra crafting time this week. I'm going to start one. And mine was retroactive through January 2016. So I'm just going to flip through really quick and show you what I did. So January 2016, these are the projects that I finished. If I had yarn left over from the projects, I taped it in using the washi tape that Allison sent me. And this was a notebook that I got in the hand spun swap. And then if I had tags for the yarns, I put that in. And like the Merla Fiber Arts bat, the information came written on the back of a sticker, so I taped in the information, but then put the sticker in. And I glued things right over writing and other things, so you flip it up to look under, because I love those kinds of books where things fold out, because I'm really just a small, tiny human. I sketched in patterns in some places. I wrote down the patterns for things that I made up on the fly. So here's the Pikachu hat recipe-ish. Yes, tags are in here. I colored how this gradient stripe worked up, because I would have to cut a lot of yarn to get that stripe in there, and I'd want to cut all that yarn when I could use that yarn for other things. This tag has information on both sides, so I just left it swinging. It was really, really fun. I did it over 2 days, I think, collecting tags, collecting yarns, and some things will be glued in later, because I know, okay, I don't know, I'm like 90% certain that somewhere around here I have the tag for the Science Monkey Mercantile Faraday sock in the Rosalind Franklin's overexposed photo colorway, which I didn't write the name down in here. I'll have to fix that after the podcast. I just saw it a few weeks ago, so maybe I threw it away, but I don't think I did, because I've had in mind wanting to do this journal since the beginning of the year. So I've just been keeping all the tags, but not just sitting down and doing it. So I finally sat down and did it. This has my personal counts for what I did for the Rose City Rollers. I have the cross stitch pictures in here, so that one folds down. I have the Market Bag general recipe here, the Jar Cozy general recipe here, more tags here, and then this is this week. So yarn from the Jar Cozy right here, and the modifications I made for the second one, and then string band here with one of the buttons that is similar design, although smaller in size to the ones that I used on the hat. And I'll go back and write in my my modifications to the string band hat after the podcast. So yeah, that was really, really exciting for me. I really, really like journaling, theoretically. I used to do it constantly in high school and college. And then even after, I wrote pretty regularly, probably. I used to write every day. In high school, every day, pages and pages. Or at least a page in a journal. It depends on the size of the page. Every day. And then in high school or in college, I would write during lecture classes in between taking notes, because it gave me something else to focus on, because I wasn't knitting at the time. Sometimes I would crochet in class instead, or do a little bit of hand sewing. But a lot of times it was just writing in my journal. And then I had Gabriel, and I would write in my journal just a few times a week. And then we moved to Kentucky, and I just kind of stopped. I don't know why. Probably because I started knitting, and that took up a bajillion hours of my time. But I used to make sketches and do all sorts of things in my journal and glue things in, and yeah. So I really, really like this knitting journal thing, because it gives me another crafty, creative outlet that is something that I love, which is journaling. But not in a I need to write in it every day sort of deal. I just need to make notes as I finish things. And I can always put in notes that can be held later. Like, I have loose in here the little cuts of yarn that will be part of my Frankensocks entry. because those are ends of each yarn that I've used so far. It's just really fun. It's a really fun thing. If you've been thinking about making a craft journal, do it because it's so, so fun. Okay, on to other things that I started this week because I have a bajillion, like I've said. I started a pair of socks for my sister. These are the Christmas socks that I was talking about last week. I just started the first one. The pattern is Partying It Up and Getting Down by Megan Williams. This is the Partying It Up version. So it's worked toe up, and it has this chevron up the front of the sock. It will be worked with an afterthought heel as per the pattern. And the yarn that I'm using for this is Fiber Nymph Dye Works Bounce Base in the Inversible set. So this is what the other sock will be. And as you can tell, there's a lot of black in this. So the Inversibles is you get 50 grams of this one in particular is large purple, large orchid stripe, skinny black stripe, large orchid stripe, skinny black stripe. The other one will be large black stripe, skinny orchid, large black, skinny orchid. So that will be pretty cool, and I thought that that would be a cool effect for these socks because on the toe-up version, the chevron points up, and then on the getting down version, which is the cuff down version, the chevron points down. So that'll be a fun, different, interesting thing. And my sister wanted a pair of these socks after the pair that I made last year using Partying It Up and Getting Down. And those were knit in a Croy sock thing. I'll put in a picture so you can see the finished object. So this is the first one. This is probably one of the projects that's going to get set aside, although maybe not because it is really, really simple. And yeah, we'll see. You know what? I just realized that I forgot to write a project down. So there's even more projects than I thought. And my ball winder is still, I didn't try putting it together. So this was hand wound using the top of my Nitty Nutty, actually. I wound it on this portion right here as a Nostapin, and it worked fabulously. I was winding it at the library, and the librarian, we're known there because Mara is known there. So, and we go all the time. Ginger was like, what are you doing? That's so interesting. They're always very interested in my crafting, which I appreciate. Because when we go, if we go for any length of time, of course I pull out crafting. Sometimes we walk in, Mara is very down to business, gets, goes over, looks at the DVDs, looks at the playaways, looks at the books, and she's like, okay, I need the library card. So I pull out my phone, she pulls up the app, pulls up the card on my app, scans herself out, and she says, okay, time to go home. But sometimes we go and she wants to play, or Gabriel's there, so he wants to play. So I had this to wind, so I took it with me. And I wound it. And I really, really enjoy the look of hand wound balls of yarn. And I am pulling from the center. Although I would prefer the ease and speed of my ball winder. This works fine, and at least I have my Swift, so when I'm doing it at home, it's very quick and easy, comparatively. I would much rather have a working Swift than have a working ball winder. Personal preference, I just think that makes it easier. I started a cross stitch, which has a ton of progress this week because I was doing 2 strands a day. I'm going to go back to do 1 strand a day because work. But this is what it looks like so far. And this is the picture of what it will look like. I'm going to have to buy a hoop to mount it in or figure out alternate mounting, although I do like the way this hoop looks. But this is, again, another kit that my children broke into, and all of the yarn was accounted for, but the hoop was missing. Everything but the hoop was in the kit still. I am making this for my best friend. We found it in her mom's room when, right after mom passed away, I helped her go through her mom's things so she wouldn't have to do that alone. I started a new spinning project. It is BFL and Sparkle from Yarn Geek Fibers in the Rainbow Dashing colorway, which I'm doing as a 2-ply fractal. I picked the fiber because Haley and I were talking last Tuesday about what I should do for June, or maybe it was Monday. I don't remember. I was talking to Haley, and I was like, what fiber should I spin next month? I'm going to do it on my wheel. It's going to be a new start and finish. And we were looking through my fibers, and she was like, oh, Rainbow Dashing. Because I was like, I know that's hard when someone's like, pick one thing from everything. So pick a few and we'll narrow it down. And she was like, Rainbow Dashing would be one. And then that's where it ended because she loves My Little Pony. And this is what the other side looks like. So basically it's mostly this blue, and then at the very end, there's a pop of Rainbow Crazy. So I've broken it into 4 balls for the fractal side, and then obviously 1 for the non-fractal side, and I'm in solid color spinning Purgatory right now on the first ball, and this is what the bobbin looks like. But it will be beautiful when it's finished. The single is spinning pretty thin, so it'll probably be a fingering weight once it's plied. And I did some pretty decent progress on it last week. I really, really enjoy taking my spinning outside on my back porch or my front porch, depending on where the kids are. When they were camping out in the back, they would be playing in the tent, and I would be sitting, spinning and saying, hey, go to sleep, which is fine. And then I did a lot of spinning one day on the front porch, just watching them all play. So yeah, hopefully this will be done this month. I'm really going to try. I think it will be accomplished. I did not spin yesterday, but I'm not really surprised because Sunday, even though I go to my knitting group, I don't get a lot of crafting done except what I take there. Because the rest of the day I'm playing with kids and all sorts of things. And Gabriel went to knitting with me yesterday. I think he's going to be a fairly regular fixture there. I worked also on the quilt that I am making for Steve. So I was somewhere over on this end sewing this down. I don't remember what was sewn down or not, but I'll take a picture of the new progress and put it in. I do know that I started this what is this called? Sashing wasn't started being sewn down or even sewn together. So I'm sewing a piece on and then sewing it across, and that's how I'll be doing it. I have the next sashing piece like that, and then the actual squares themselves with the sashing pieces in order. I had laid this out like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't know. Back in the old place is when I started this. I had laid it out there and laid out the squares in a way that was appealing, but then I sewed one of these block rows together incorrectly, so it just doesn't fit anymore. So I had to re-scramble with squares this week and probably have to do that every time I get to the next row. Maybe not, but probably. But yeah, that's Steve's quilt, and I have been sewing two lengths of thread every day. It's going to be all hand sewn and hand quilted. So yeah, that's what I've been doing, and it's going to take a long time, but at least I'll make progress this month, and it'll be better than what it's been getting for the past since we moved here. I have sewn on it since we moved here, but very, very little. I think I've done more progress, or equal progress, this week as I've done since we moved here. I started a cowl for my sister. And this is my design. It is the Scaling the Stronghold. So I am through the first pattern repeat of the round part. Yeah, it doesn't look super exciting, but whatever, it'll look fabulous when it's done. And it is a ribbing pattern, so it works really, really well with variegated yarns. I'm using Gnome Acres in the house sock base in the Gotham Knights Calais. My sister is obsessed with Batman. She's going to marry him when she grows up, and I'm going to haunt in the Batcave with her without having to marry anybody. So there's that. This is what it looks like. I'm holding the yarn doubled because it's a DK weight pattern. And I also went up a needle size to size 8s purely because I couldn't find any size 7s, which is what the pattern calls for, but it'll be fine. 7, 8, close enough. So that is the beginning of that cowl. And it's a really, really easy peasy, take anywhere sort of project, at least for the circular part, I find. I even find the flat part pretty simple, but the circular part is even more simple because the flat part changes a little bit every, I don't know, pattern repeat kind of section. I don't know what you want to call them. I started another cowl, which is also my design. It is the Buffalo Crossing, which I designed for the Knit Buffalo truck. And I designed it using her DK weight again. And this time I'm using my hand spun, and I changed the pattern a little. In the pattern, these eyelets are just make one. And I didn't specify in the pattern how to make your make one. So it could be whatever you wanted. And I decided I was just going to do yarn overs. So it has those little eyelet sections in it. And I don't know if you can really tell because, well, I think you can kind of tell. It's got a chevron pattern that is not it is an atypical chevron pattern, which you're able to see more when there's more of the fabric. And the yarn that I'm using is my hand spun. I don't think, I could be wrong, correct me if I am because I would like to know that if I'm wrong. I don't think that I've made myself anything with my hand spun before. I've used my hand spun, but I don't think I've made anything for myself with my hand spun. So here it is, and again, my ball winder wasn't working, but look at how pretty it is hand wound. Every time I look at this yarn, I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. But I'm going to put this one aside. This is one of the projects that's being put aside until I finish the project for the other cowl. Amanda's is priority, and then mine is after that because that's how projects for me always go. This is knit flat, and then you use a Kitchener or 3 needle bind off with a provisional cast on. I did my provisional cast on just wrapping loops around the needle that I was working with and a spare cable. And that's how I do my provisional cast ons whenever possible, because then I can just do the closing however I need to straight off of a needle and not have to worry about picking up stitches or anything. Oh, this yarn is so pretty. I can't believe I made that yarn. I mean, I know someone else dyed it, but I made it. That's awesome. And it's a little bit thick and thin. It's not the most even spin I've ever done because I did it pretty quick, but I love it so, so much. And then one more project that I have to pull out really quick because I didn't write it down. I started nephew Christmas socks, but these will be put aside until Cecilia's are done. So these are going to be for my nephew Robert of the wearing socks for 4 days in a row fame, because I have to knit socks for someone who wears them 4 days in a row, obviously. They will be child tube socks again because they are not getting socks with heels until their feet stop growing. And I am doing something a little different with these, not super different, but a little. I used Lion Brand sock ease in the Red Hots colorway for the toe, and then I did just a little bit of striping in, so a blue stripe or a stripe of the Marigold Gem Yoshi, and then 3 stripes of red hots, 1 stripe of Yoshi, 2 stripes of red hots, 1 stripe of Yoshi, and then now into all Yoshi all the time. And I will go until Yoshi runs out, where I get really close to the cuff, and then I'll switch back for the red hots colorway there, because I just think that these colors together are too pretty not to have in a project. And apparently I'm really into using scrappy yarns right now. Go with it if that's what makes you happy in knitting. I think that you should follow it, right? Whatever it is. And obviously I'm talking to myself here and not you. But again, if it makes you happy in your crafting, that's probably what you should be working on. The final things that I started this week are the Easter wreaths. So this is what they look like. They're a little bit beaten up because children touch things. So anyway, what they are is just a metal hanger that I bent into a circle-ish, whatever, close enough. And then I wrapped in some batting, and then wrapped in cut up shirts. So far it's only been shirts from my kids, and now I am going to cut shirts into strips and tie the strips on around, all the way around. And I will have my children help me. They helped me tie on the batting, and they're really excited to help tie on the fabric strips. So I just have to make the fabric strips by cutting up old clothes for my kids. I donate or give away anything that's salvageable from my kids, but they're hard on clothes. Let me show you. So for instance, one of the things that's going onto this wreath is this dress, which, oh my gosh, I love this dress so much. It is one of my favorite things that Mara has ever owned, and I love it. But she cut a hole in the back. I totally would have donated this or put it aside in the bin for my future grandchildren, because why not? But then she cut a hole in the back. So it is now decoration for a wreath. And those are all of my works in progress. So modular projects, I did them all. Not as good as I've been doing, but everything got some work. So I did square number 34 on my blanket. This is yarn from Cecilia's Socks. I was working from a scrap ball and then another ball of yarn. And then when the scrap ball ran out, I wanted to work from the outside of the yarn. But I didn't want to disrupt the pattern. So this is from the yarn that I wound off from the outside so that the pattern would be in the appropriate place. I did barn raising square number 77 out of some yarn from Haley, and this colorway is just beautiful. And then I did 7 hexapuffs. Did a celebratory using a yarn from Haley, which is a Peyton's Croy, and then the Premier Serenity sock leftover from the hat. There's that leftover again. These are yarns from Haley. This is Electric Avenue. That's the colorway from Stray Cat Socks. I needed all the colors for my knitting journal, so I had to cut the color, just little pieces out of the color chunks. So I made a hexapuff out of the pieces that I cut, because it was necessary. And then these are from yarn that Claire gave me yesterday at knitting. It's just scrap bits of yarn that she had in her bag that she was like, hey, here, have these, because I know you make a bajillion hexapuffs. So those are going in. Also, this one's a worsted weight. This one is Fingering Maybe Sport. They feel like they're cotton mostly, maybe cotton wool. Not 100% cotton. They're cotton something. But that's what they feel like anyway. She doesn't know what they are. She's had for forever. So 7 of those, which brings me up to 564. So not as good on my modular projects this week as in previous weeks. You know, I did make a lot of crafting progress on other things. I have a couple new things. I received a package in the mail from Christina, and she sent me a skein of yarn, and she said, if you can use it, go ahead and keep it, and if not, feel free to pass it on. I'm totally going to be using this. What it is fondant fiber, who I've wanted to try her stuff forever, but UK-based dyer, so shipping is, pricey. It is 100% Wensleydale, a DK base in the colorway Slick. And it is beautiful. It's like a cloudy rainbow. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to keep it for me. It's kind of a little bit prickly for neck, but I'm thinking that fingerless mitts might be gorgeous out of this. I don't know. It's soft but prickly. Does that make sense? Like it's soft to my hands, but it's prickly to my neck. Um, it's so pretty, and I've been wanting to try this dyer, so that's even more exciting. And then I also received a pattern from Holly as a commiseration on the fact that neither of us could go to the ZK. I finished reading Murder of Crows, and I finished listening to Deadbeat last night. I haven't started a new computer audio thing, but I did start reading a new book, which is Daughter of the Blood, and I am a quarter of the way through it. I'm on page 103 out of 412. It is by Anne Bishop, who wrote Murder of Crows, but they are completely different. Completely. The Murder of Crows is very urban fantasy, very very dark, and this is part of the Black Jewels series. It says trilogy, but it is not a trilogy any longer, which is more high fantasy. It's still dark-ish, but I would say it's more of a high fantasy sort of thing. There's magic and different realms that people live in, and like not like kingdom type realms, like alternate planes of existence type realms is the way that I understand it. It's I don't really remember it because I read it in high school, I think, or college. I don't know. A long time ago. But there are different races of people. One of the races has wings. Another race has like pointed ears and reminds me of like elfin features. I'm sorry, my voice is awful right now. Water is not helping. Good thing we're at the end of the podcast, right? Anyway, it's good. It's dark, but I highly recommend it from what I remember. I'll tell you later if I recommend it or not after I get through book like 7 or whatever. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I started listening to Neil Gaiman, Fragile Things, in my car. There are 9 discs, and I finished disc 2 last night. It is a collection of short stories and poems, and some of them are kind of scary. And I do a lot of my listening driving to and from work, or sitting in my car on break, which I do when it's dark out. So that's kind of scary. But I'm enjoying it, and I want to say that, yes, Neil Gaiman narrates it, so it's his own writing in his own narration, which I super duper like. And it's fairly short. It's only 10 hours, 47 minutes of audio, but it'll take me a while because my drives aren't very long. I do also listen to it when the kids and I are driving anywhere, but we usually make pretty short trips, so it's just little snippets of sound. And I don't normally talk about things that I'm watching because I don't watch a lot of television or movies. I watch mostly podcasts, and then I tell you about new podcasts as I watch them, which I will tell you about a new to me one in a few minutes. But this week I binge watched an entire season of something, which almost never happens. And what I binge watched was Vikings. Not this season. This is season 3. I watched the entirety of season 2 over 2 days and then started season 3 yesterday. And I love this so much. Norse mythology, I would say it's my favorite. And when I was young, probably from 7 to 9, Norse mythology was my favorite. I read all of the versions of all of the stories that I could find, and it was just my favorite. It's not the one that I know the most of now, though, because it's not... The Norse weren't one of the, like, great cultures that were studied in... that we studied in elementary through high school. So I know a lot more about Greek and Roman mythology than I remember about Norse mythology, but they're totally my favorite. And their culture... Phone call, pause. The last thing I have for you this week is a podcast recommendation. I have been binge watching The Knitting Broomstick with Jilly. She has a bunch of podcast episodes, 30s, I want to say. That could be wrong. I could totally forget. But she is very, very enjoyable. She is a mother of 4, I want to say. So she suffers from mommy brain, which I also suffer from. And she hosts fandom alongs every month. Next year, she's going to 2-month-long fandom knit-alongs, craft-alongs, which are really, really enjoyable. I haven't taken part in any of them because I just started watching her podcast, but I really, really like her podcast. So go give it a watch, and it will be linked in the show notes somewhere. That's all I have for you this week, and I have some errands that I need to run, so I'm going to go. I hope you made something fantastic with your sticks and string, and I will see you next week. Bye!